So let's just dive into this business model a little bit, because obviously, I mean, most people kind of understand the definition of what a lawyer is, and obviously they understand there's different segmentations of being a lawyer. So let's start there. Like, what kind of lawyer were you? And then just jump into like, what is this new business venture?
Got it. So civil employment attorney. So civil means not criminal. And so I primarily have done defense work, which means representing the company, the employer. So I've done that for 16 years. I've also done business litigation, antitrust, securities, commercial litigation. So essentially representing large companies and corporations and sometimes smaller employers and businesses in litigation, meaning they've been sued in court. There's no criminal charges involved anywhere. So that's what I've done for 16 years. I've done that in a big law firm. I've done that in two small law firms that I founded and helped manage. And I also did that in a kind of medium-sized firm. Most recently, I was a VP of Legal Affairs and General Counsel at Morehouse College. So I was doing that for the last 4 years.
So with everything that she just listed, you can kind of hear like she's the epitome of the corporate structure on one hand, right? So I want you to pay attention to what she's about to say about this other business unit on the other hand. So that's one, right? Like that's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde. Continue.
So the new business is called Flawed Masterpiece. And this is something that I've been thinking about for years. I would say probably in the last 5 years, I've felt compelled to share my story. So that's where this all started, kind of my personal story, which is something that unless you are close to me, been in a relationship with me, or kind of part of my family, you would have no idea what my personal story is. And it's very different than kind of what I, have shown kind of on my corporate side. So I've been feeling compelled to share that story for the last few years. And so Flawed Masterpiece is the culmination of that. But the purpose is to empower other women. So it started with Joy, share your story. And then for me, that is important. And as part of Flawed Masterpiece, I do share my story. But the more important part is to empower other women and girls that can see themselves in my story. I felt like my story is not there. This is not out there. Like there's no one who's talking about this. And so what this is about accepting your flaws. It's about things that you perceive to be flawed and or society views to be flawed. So that can be mental health, that can be mental health diagnosis, that can be history of abuse, that can be coming from a single parent household. So you got race, class, gender, you got it all mixed up in there. If anything that is perceived to be less than, that's the flawed. And then the masterpiece is essentially, and I'll talk about it later, but everybody is amazing. Like everybody's unique, everybody's individual. There are no rules. And so part of this is based on, my first 40 years on this earth, I lived according to rules that are bullshit. Like there are no rules. And at some point you realize there are no damn rules. And so why don't I show up authentically? Why don't I show up in my whole self, not in the 10% of myself that the world and my family and my religion deem as acceptable? There's another 90%. And it's about showing up in that way, accepting yourself, loving yourself, and then kind of living in your full self. That's what Flawed Masterpiece is about, and about seeing the beauty in it. Like it's not acceptance in a, hey, this is some fucked up shit, but let me accept it. No, it's like, I am fucking dope. Like I am amazing. That's the point of Flawed Masterpiece, because there's a lot of stigma associated with a lot of the things that I've experienced in my life. And even in the conversations where it's about, let's get rid of the stigma, let's minimize it, it's still about, well, let's accept it. Like, hey, this is unfortunate, but no, fuck that. Like, own it. Like superpower. Like I have superpowers, because until you fuck with yourself, you can't fuck with nobody else. Like that's really what it is. And that's what I learned in my life, is that these issues are way more critical than practicing law, which is amazing. And it's an amazing accomplishment and I'm proud of it, but that's not the most important thing. So that's Flawed Mastery.